Hi, and welcome to Creative Chelsea. Today I'd like to share with you a set of alternative cards that I have made using the Winter Woods Paper Pumpkin Kit from October 2019. Here are the cards I designed using the kit, as well as some extra supplies from my craft room. So some of the extra supplies I used the rectangle stitched framelit dies. Now, the nice thing about these dies is it provides a cute little stitching along the edge. If you don't have these dies, you can always use a paper cutter to cut out these rectangle shapes. I also used the Shimmery Crystal Effects, and this just adds a little shimmer to the trees and some texture. I'm not sure if you can see that. I used some twine, and this is some retired garden green twine. And if you don't have any green twine, you can always make your own just using white and the ink. I also found some accessories, and I'm using both the gold and the silver metallic pearls. And then one tool that I'd like using today is the stamp iratus, and I'll show you why I like that later. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Let's start with this card. So I'm using Early Espresso for my card base, and I'm also using a card base from the kit and an envelope. So the first thing to do is to open the envelope. And we have this great wood grain paper inside, and we're going to use a large die, and this die, the size is 3.75, so 3 3/4 by 5 1/8. So if you don't have this die, then you can just use your paper cutter and cut to roughly the same dimensions. So we're going to run that through the Big Shot, and then we're going to also cut the next one. We're going to cut the white, and the white is 3 inches by 4 5/16. And then we're going to use a little smaller size to cut out the pine trees. And the trees are 2 5/8 by 4 inches. So I'm going to run this through my Big Shot, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've gone ahead and ran those through my Big Shot. And you can always find the dimensions and the supplies that I'm using in the description below. So just pop those out. Okay, so let's go ahead and adhere some of these things to our card base. So I've got Early Espresso, and I'm just going to add the wood grain with some snail. And I'm just centering this in the middle of the card base. And then the next one, the white. And I'm doing this one at a slight angle, just in the center, but at an angle. Okay, so behind the trees, I've added a paper ribbon. And so what I have here is I have cherry cobbler, which is not the same color that came in the kit. This is a little deeper red. And I'm going to just take a pair of scissors and flag the ends. And I do this by snipping in the middle, and then going from a corner to the middle, like that. So snip in the middle, corner to top. Okay, and so this piece of cardstock is a 1/2 inch by 12 inches. If you don't have a 12-inch piece, you can use 11, and I'll show you how to hack it behind the trees. And I'm just going to use a bone folder and just break down those fibers just a little bit so that it's a little looser and acts a little bit more like a ribbon. Okay, so then on the back, I'm going to add some snail. I'm going to go down the length of it, the long ways. And then I'm just going to trim that since I've got little papers poking out. I'm going to start with about an inch or so coming off the edge on the left on the top, and then I'm coming down on the right, bend it, come down on the left, bend it, and then just have that little bit poking out on the right to finish that off. Okay, so now let's turn it over and look at the back. So here on the back, we've got a lot of space that we're not seeing. So if you don't have a piece long enough, you could cut it in the middle and then just do the top and then do the bottom. And then there would be an opening here that no one would see. And that would give you enough, you would have enough to kind of fill that out. Now, if you only had small pieces, you could even hack it and just do like a small piece here, and then do some small pieces. But just remember to fold it on the corners. That's what gives you that kind of ribbon look. Okay, so this is going to be placed on our card with some dimensionals, and the kit does come with some, so I'm just going to use those. Put them in the corners, and then a couple in the middle. Okay, and so this I've also placed at a slight angle. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to put the shimmery crystal effects on the tree, and it's going to take some time for it to dry, but I just did it all over both trees and just kind of went along those little white snow drifts that are on the tree. So I'm just going to speed this up so that you can see how I've done it, and you don't have to watch in real time, which will take a while. Okay, so can you see that little bit of shimmery on the trees? So we're just going to put this to the side and let it dry. Okay, make sure to cap your crystal effects so it doesn't dry out and you can't use it. So another thing we're going to do is we're going to stamp a sentiment, and we've just got an extra piece of Pool Party. So we're going to do that in the Night of Navy, which comes in the kit. And then we're going to use one of these birds. Now, this color is Poppy Parade, and you can see that those colors kind of clash. So the kit comes with a stamp set, and in the stamp set, you get a bird shape. And this bird is the exact size of the cutout of the bird that faces to the left. And so we're going to use Cherry Cobbler, which is the same color we've used back here, and we're just going to stamp over the red and turn it into a red Cherry Cobbler bird. So you'll grab your Cherry Cobbler ink, get your bird, ink it up, and then line it up. Now we're going to do it a couple times, so if you don't line it up perfectly, that's okay, because you do have a chance to, as you can see, try to cover it again. Can you see that? That it's kind of off a little bit. So we'll do it again and just really make that bird nice and dark. Let's try one more time, just to really add some color to that bird. I'm missing a little bit of the beak. There we go. Let's go ahead and stamp the greeting. So I'm going to use the paper piercing mat for the greeting, and this just gives a little give, I guess, to the stamp when we ink it up so that it gets a better image. And it's great to use with these photopolymer stamps. Kind of presses into the paper. Okay, so we have our greeting. And now I'm going to take a small stitched rectangle die, and I'm just going to cut this out. And this size is 1 11/16 by 1 3/16. And if you're just going to be using a paper cutter, then just, you know, round up or down to whatever whole or half size or quarter size that you want. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this out at the Big Shot. Great, so we've got our greeting, and that's cut out. And we're just going to apply this once this is dried into this corner, and then add our bird on top, and then put on our accessories. So we're just going to put that aside, and we'll get to that in a minute, and we'll get our other card put together while we wait for everything to dry. Don't forget to subscribe for next month's Paper Pumpkin Kit by looking for the subscription link below in the description box. Next month's kit will include 24 over-the-top tags in 4 different designs. And I will also be creating cards with these tags, so you do not want to miss it. Subscribe before the 10th of November to receive this kit. So our second card uses some of the same products, so that's why we're doing them together. And what we've got for this card, we've got a Night of Navy card base. We have another card base from the kit. We have a piece of vellum, and this is just going to help frame the trees. And then we're going to be using some of the extra piece, this extra piece that comes between the 2 trees in the kit. And then we're going to use this bottom snowbank. And so we're going to go ahead and trim. Let's start with that. Take a paper snips and just trim off the base of these trees. And then I do have a card, my first alternative card that I made and I posted yesterday, uses a second set of trees. And so this could be used for that card, or I'm going to make another card and it's going to be using this set of trees as well. So look for that tomorrow. And then we're going to use one of the flag labels, and we're going to stamp Season's Greetings. And then the green twine is for this card. So let's go ahead and get started. So one of the first things I'm going to do is trim this down, and I'm just going to trim it down 1/8 of an inch on all sides, just so we have a little peak of Night of Navy coming out behind. Okay, so I've trimmed this to 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. And you'll see that that just gives us a very tiny border, which is perfect for this card. So now I've just got a piece of vellum, and we're going to create a frame with this vellum. We're going to use the large stitched rectangle die, and this one again is 3 3/4 by 5 1/8. And then we're going to use one of the smaller ones, and this one is 2 5/8 by 4 inches. And we're going to go ahead and cut this out at the Big Shot. Now, if you don't have these dies and you need to use a paper cutter, go ahead and you're going to cut the larger shape first. And then when you use your paper cutter, you're going to start and stop your blade so that this next rectangle is in the center. So you'll need to do some measuring and figuring out where the center is for that. So one of the nice things about the Big Shot and these frames is that you can just cut them both at the same time and make that frame, just by eyeballing it, you make that frame really easy to cut out. And these stitched, sorry, that's noisy. So these stitched nested dies, they make the stitching on both the outside and the inside. So when you do frames like this, you get the stitching on both sides, the inside and the outside. Okay, so you can see we've got stitching on the outside and the inside. So that's going to go on top. And then we've got our snow. And in my first card, I just cut off the snowdrift and made it a rectangle. But I think for this card, I'm going to leave the snowdrift. It just kind of adds a little bit of interest. I also, on this card, added the blue snowflakes. And on my card today, I'm going to keep them off. And I just want to see how it looks. If it looks a little bit cleaner, or if I like the difference between those two. So if you want to add them, you're just going to grab the stamp, ink it with Night of Navy, and you're going to stamp it around your trees. Okay, so we've got those pieces. Let's go ahead and stamp our greeting, which is Season's Greetings, using Night of Navy. Okay, so that was a little bit, didn't come out really great. So I think I'm just gonna get a new one. They give us some extras, so that's what I'm gonna do. Here we go. So this is one of the reasons I do like this Stamparatus, is that if it has a problem stamping, you can always just stamp again in the exact same place. Okay, so I think whatever happened, maybe I just didn't ink it up well enough, but I think it should be working better this time. There. So let's go ahead, while we're stamping, let's do 3 snowflakes, and I'll show you where I've stamped those. All right, so for the snowflakes, I am using the Stamparatus. And the reason for this is because we're going to stamp on this shimmery white paper. And it doesn't, it kind of did what happened before, where it doesn't give us a really strong Night of Navy color with the first stamp. And so we're going to need to repeat and go over that again to get a nice dark stamp. So and you can fit 3 here. It's a little tricky. And when you use the Stamparatus with a photopolymer stamp set like this one, you do want to use like a foam pad like this one underneath. Okay, so I went ahead and I've just laid out, I've got my foam pad, my glitter paper, and then the 2 magnets. Now make sure to keep these magnets separate or they can shatter. They're very strong. So you're just going to kind of start with the hardest one first, because then we can make sure it fits. Just kind of maneuver it until it fits between those tree branches. And we're going to just be fussy cutting it out. So it doesn't really matter if it is super close or not, because we are fussy cutting. And I did cut mine pretty close to the image. All right, so so anyway, I laid it down and then I picked it up with the hinge plate, and then I'm inking it up. And then I'm gonna stamp it. Sorry if this is shaking. Okay. And you can see that it's come in pretty light. So I'm going to do it again, ink it up, and stamp again. Okay, I'm going to just go one more time and try to get a nice dark image. Okay, that is good for me. And then I'm going to go ahead and clean this. And then I'm going to repeat the process. So I'm taking this off. I'm going to lay it down. I'm probably going to move this magnet and then pick it up and then ink it and stamp it. And I'll probably do 3 times as well. So when I'm done with all 3 of these, then I'll be right back. Okay, so I have my 3 snowflakes. And what I'm going to do next, I'm going to fussy cut these out. And it does take some time. So I'm going to show you one at fast speed, and then I'll go ahead and do the 3 off camera. So the best way to fussy cut is to keep your scissors in the same place and to just move the paper. All right, so I've gone ahead and I've cut out my snowflake. So I'm going to turn off the camera and finish cutting the other 2, and then we'll move on to assembling our card. All right, so I've gone ahead and finished cutting the snowflakes, and so now we're ready to assemble. So the first thing we need to do is grab our card base, and this is in Knitted Navy. We're going to add our pine trees to the front. And we're just going to go ahead and center it and leave that little border around. And then we're going to add the vellum. Now vellum is tricky because you can see the adhesive behind it, so you kind of need to put it in places that you're going to cover up. So what I decided to do was put it in each corner. So there are 2 corners, 2 spots in that corner, 2 in this corner, and then 2 down here, and 2 here. And I'm just using glue dots because it's a small amount of adhesive. All right, and that just gets centered. So now I'm going to add the crystal effects to my trees. And I probably should have done this while I was cutting out my snowflakes, because then I would have had that time for it to dry. There. So I'm just going to do that now, and then I'm going to let it dry. Okay, so we're just going to set this to the side, and let's go to our first card, and we'll finish this one. So we're going to add the sentiment, and we're just going to add that with some snail. We don't want our cards to get too thick, or it's really hard for them to be mailed. And this is dry now, so we can touch that. And I'm just going to add that at a little bit of an angle to the bottom of that tree. And then I need to find my bird. I think it's right here. Yep. And I'm going to add a glue dot. And he's going to sit right here on top of this greeting. So I've placed a glue dot there. And then I'm going to place him over the glue dot. And then the last thing we're going to do, we're going to add some of the gold metallic pearls. And I like to use my pickup tool with those. And we're going to just put 2 on top of the trees, kind of like little stars. And then we'll just add 3 down here by the sentiment or the greeting. Okay, so this card is done. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and move on with this card. Mine is still a little wet, and I would suggest you wait until yours is dry. But I think we'll be okay to move on. So we're going to start by adhering the snowflakes, and I've got a scrap piece of paper and some liquid glue. And just going to put some in the middle and some on each end. And then carefully turn it over and I'm going to add it here. You know what? I'm going to actually take some of that glue off. There. So I'm going to add it here to the corner, the top right corner of my card. Okay. My fingers have glue on them. So let's fold this and get another piece of clean scrap paper and do the same thing. So middle, tops, and this one doesn't have quite so much glue on it, so I'm not going to blot off any extra. And this one I'm going to put down at the bottom corner. Oh, we forgot our whites. Let's put our white snowdrift down. Where is that? Okay, so here it is. So make sure your glitter side is up. And I'm just going to trim, actually I'll be okay. So I'm going to turn it over where it's not shiny and add some snail. And then place this down at the bottom. And I'm going to leave a little bit of the vellum peeking out at the bottom. And I just want it to touch the base of the tree. Oh, you know what? It's going to be, yeah, there we go. Okay, so place that down there. And now we can add our snowflake on top of it. And that just goes in the bottom corner. And then the last snowflake, okay, this last snowflake is going to come up a little bit right by those trees. So I'm going to just lay it down, the snowflake. So now grab your seasoned greetings. You're going to put some snail along the back and grab whatever color twine you're going to use. You could use a blue or green. This is garden green and it doesn't quite match the green of the pine trees, but I'm going to use it anyway. So that's 1, 2, 3, and snip. if it will. So I've wrapped it around my hand 3 times, and then I'm going to lay it down, oops, and kind of just spread it out a little bit since it's a longer greeting. And then I'm going to put it, hold on, my hands are super sticky. Try that again. Okay. So lengthen it and put it down. There. And I like doing it this way sometimes so that I can see how that shape works with the greeting. I want this to come down just a little bit. There. Okay. And then I'm just going to tuck those ends on the inside. And then we're using dimensionals to pop this up. And these are really mini dimensionals, and so I'm going to use some of this edge so that they're a little bit thicker, and I can place them over some of that twine so that I know it's going to stay there. And then I can use a mini one in the middle for support. Okay, and then this just goes in the middle. Okay, and then the last thing I'd like to do is add the silver metallic pearls. And these I'm going to add to the center of the snowflakes, or at least the ones I can see. There's 1 and 2. And then we're going to add a couple more around the top. So maybe 1 here, 1 here, and then a couple down here in the corner. Okay. So as soon as this Crystal Effects is dry, then our card will be done. Don't forget to subscribe for next month's Paper Pumpkin Kit by looking for the subscription link below in the description box. Next month's kit will include 24 over-the-top tags in 4 different designs. And I will also be creating cards with these tags, so you do not want to miss it. Subscribe before the 10th of November to receive this kit. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe, like, and share. Visit creativechelsea.com for more information about Paper Pumpkin and to start getting your monthly kit. Have a creative day. Bye.